This is part 3 of a 3-part podcast.
I'm Edward Norton. No, not that one, the other one, and I love pies. No, not that kind, the other kind. Hermes is an old-school forum packed full of friendly people who occasionally give out a slice of pie. You'll never forget your first slice of pie. It made me feel so good, I had to buy a whole pie so I could share the love. Oh, and there's apples too. Sign up at permies.com to join in the world of homesteading and permaculture, and you too might get a slice of pie.
The other thing that I need to do, and I've made a list of some brutal topics, and I've got about 40 new podcast topics I need to do that I've never put into a podcast before. But just shooting from the top of my head, I know I've done some fishing around on 3 different enormous topics. One of the topics is how there's a lot of homesteaders where they do the dream. They jump into homesteading and they do it for 2 to 7 years, and they do a great job. They are really living the dream, and then they're like, fuck it, I'm going back to live in the city in an apartment. I'm not even going to have a garden. I'm going to just eat at restaurants every meal. I'm going to just have a worky job and just go to work. Because with homesteading, what they were doing is they had a worky job, a big-ass fucking commute, and then every evening and every weekend, they're working.
They'd be chipping away at their homesteading, massive undertaking.
And then after a certain number of years, 2 to 7 years, they're like, fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm done. And so I kind of feel like, let's drag it out and take a good hard look at it. And I really think that the solution is community. And it's like, because the next podcast that I need to make is that if you have animals, you cannot travel. And it's like, and I've got my stories, and the thing is, I got a couple of people that I want to do the podcast with, and they have even harder stories.
Yeah.
And but basically, the thing I want to do is I want to talk about, like, if you have community, and if you have a beautiful, wonderful community, 2 things happen. 1, you don't want to travel. You don't want to go there. It's too good here. It's too wonderful here. You don't feel like traveling. There's no place you want to go. You come up with excuses to not go. And 2, you have authentically reliable people who will take care of your animals while you're away. Like they've been already taking care of the animals with you. And so, whereas right now, if you have animals, and there are stories of people coming home to find their animals dead.
Yeah.
Because the people who were supposed to take care of them changed their mind, but forgot to tell you.
Yeah, or they flaked out, or something came up and there wasn't a plan C. They didn't have a backup to that one person doing things. And they're like, I didn't want to bother you. I didn't know it was going to happen. I didn't know this was going to happen when I just stepped away for, just a couple hours.
Or I didn't realize I'm a human being and I'm going to go fuck right off. And it's kind of like, what is delightful is to have a community of reliable, good people. Yeah. And so, really, that's kind of what we're trying to build. And so, all right. Another podcast that I want to record, which I think is profoundly important, and I just haven't been able to get to it yet. I don't know how many people I've heard from where the skip stuff is the solution to depression. And it's a multifaceted solution. There's many ways that it's a solution. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm utterly unqualified to ever talk about depression, because I don't feel like I've ever struggled with it. And I mean, if I have, I didn't know, I guess. But from hearing from some of these people where their struggle was serious and real and things like that, and then how Skip pulled them through, and that. So there's a very powerful. So basically, there's a long list of extremely powerful podcasts that I need to record, but I always record them with somebody. And in this case, it's like there's some people that I want to record them with, but I got to schedule a time, but I don't know if I'm going to be like...
Your brains are going to be in high enough gear for you to astutely address that.
Or am I going to just kind of go, what are we talking about? And so, and so it's kind of like, okay, so there's challenges in that space, but there's a ton of YouTube videos and a ton of podcasts I need to be able to get out, and I'm trying to make notes and cobble things together so that way when I can and then it's like at the same time I'm working with Andreas. You've got a bunch of video footage to him. I've put a bunch of video footage to him. There's projects. We just got to kind of get to the point of getting this last project done so we get the new video out. Then there's other videos to take video of it to get that video out and stuff like that. So there's so much more. So more videos and more podcasts. Okay. Today's podcast is brought to you by that private forum about my health shit. And maybe when the page is made about this, it'll have a link to how to get access to that forum and stuff. But I don't know what that is off the top of my head. But I was in there, and someone said something about like when you cook this food that you're about to cook, do this other thing and it'll taste better. And it'll take like an extra 20 minutes. And so this whole podcast is kind of in the spirit of, if I could come up with 20 minutes in a week, there's other things I'd rather use that 20 minutes on rather than making my food taste better. Now, granted, having my food taste better is something I'm kind of struggling with right now, and I need a little bit more diversity in my diet and stuff like that. But and so there's this toss up, and I need to be able to continue eating my good food, the food that I've learned is good for me, and I need to stick to that. And I'm getting a little burned out on the food that I am eating, but that's another story for another day. I guess the thing is that I'm trying to say is and this is where it gets very complicated, and I need you to forgive me for this extreme, brutal arrogance. But that extra 20 minutes, or any extra time I can come up with, this is bizarre, and no one's going to believe it, but I feel like I have a very rare opportunity to potentially help 100 million people. And so far, Permies.com has reached over 200 million people with all kinds of little bits and bobs. But I kind of feel like I'm in a position where if I just work a little bit harder and put in a little more time, then the effect that all of my stuff will have will be 1,000 times greater than what it has been. And but I need all these little 20 minutes and so this is, so on the one hand, to make 100 million lives better, and on the other hand, make my food taste better. And so I'm hardcore. If I can come up with a few extra cycles in a day, I don't know how many times I've been visiting with people out there in the kitchen, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I slip away to the office to see if I can get a few more emails processed in between the conversations.
Yeah.
And most people want to visit with me, but sometimes when people start talking to each other, I just kind of slip away. and I see if I can answer like 9 more emails, and then I'll slide back in. Maybe no one will notice. But that's kind of like a big part of how I spend my life. And trying to squeeze a few more bits in between everything else and juggle it all in. And then, of course, and now the server crashed, and I got to go and reboot the server, and I got to, there's a bunch of that happening too. And come up with operating capital, Okay, what can we do this week to come up with a little bit more operating capital to help get us by until the next Kickstarter? There's some of that. Blech. Okay. There are 100,000 wood stoves sold each year. At least, why can't at least half of them be rocket mass heaters? People all over the world are suffering from cold because they cannot afford heat, but they throw cardboard, paper, and wood in the garbage. And it's like, holy shit. And the answer seems so simple. And I feel like, and you know what? I've already come up with 12 ways to make the message even simpler. But it just takes time.
All right, here's a question, and there's a little bit of a explanation to it. My question, and the difference between, for example, a rocket mass heater and a wood stove, and somebody who's making that choice. I also think of the concept of public relations and how, in order to sell more cake mix, they added the instruction of add an egg to the cake mix, even though it wasn't even necessary, it's superfluous. And that the sales just shot up like crazy. So back in the day, Edward Bernays, he was hired by Betty Crocker or something, with some cake mix making company. They're like, sales for this really aren't going anywhere. We came up with a formula where all you have to do is add water to your cake mix and it's ready to go. And so then, after doing some research or whatever, they with this public relations guy, Edward Bernays, they were like, okay, change the instructions so that you have to add an egg to it. It's not that the egg is necessary for a decent tasting cake, but it is the act of being more involved. The reason I bring this up because you've got the rocket mass heater, which is, if you look at it on the surface, there's a steel barrel and there is a mass of cob and maybe a couple bricks sticking out of one end, so that's your wood feed. Then you look at a commercially available wood stove, and that is a beautifully painted wrought iron or steel box with segments of glass on the front. And sure, it's more work than the rocket mass heater, but it probably is a lot prettier right out of the box compared to a rocket mass heater as well. What is your response? Now, I don't know if you've thought of it from this point of view, but what is your thought about somebody who's like, man, I don't want to have a rocket mass heater in my house. I'd rather have I know it's going to be more work, but everybody is going to want to look at my beautiful wood stove.
I do think that there's something to be said for somebody going to the wood stove store, and then they wander around and they look at 25 different wood stoves, and then they finally decide, I want this one. So, I don't know. I think that's a component which a rocket mass heater currently does not have. And so, I don't have a solution for that.
Well, it's how do you combat the PR of wood stove companies and an actual wood stove store, and what they have going for them, regardless of the efficiency, regardless of the effectiveness of that particular stove. There's an ambiance about it. There's oh yeah, I'm not rolling back to primitive times with a hunk of adobe there with a hole in it and a metal barrel on top. I've got the top of the line wood stove, and it's.
So I would say that in that respect that, like, let's say you've got a wood stove store, and then your most expensive wood stove is $10,000. But then you had a rocket mass heater at one end of the store, all set up, and it said the smokeless masonry heater, $15,000. And it's like, yeah, it's got like, $1,500 worth of materials because it's so fancy. And then, they're going to have a guy put it in, just like there's going to be a guy putting in these other ones. But, they're going to walk away with an $8,000 profit instead of a $1,500 profit. I suppose that's a possibility, but and if somebody tries to say, like, why are you charging $15,000? I could build this for myself for $500. And it's like, okay, well, go ahead. But I think it's kind of like the Tesla Roadster effect. It's like they're $100,000, but they just happen to go faster than Lamborghinis. And they're so quiet, and there's so many other. They're a luxury car that goes faster than Lamborghinis. And so, a bunch of people bought Tesla Roadsters, and that was the beginning of where Tesla started selling electric cars. So maybe that's the thing, but it's got to be something that's done by the people with the wood stove stores, not me. So, does this kind of address what you're saying? I don't know how the egg and the cake comes along in here, but
no, it's the perception of the wood stove versus the rocket mass heater.
So it's the most expensive thing in the store, and they say we can take any of these other stoves and we can install it in a day or two. But this thing, when we come by to install it, it could take 2 to 3 days to install it. But the beautiful thing is that it heats with 1/10 the wood of any of these other stoves. And so, but it's only for the rich people. It's not for schlubs like you. Oh, yeah? Who are you calling the schlub? I got $15,000.
I don't think anybody's ever been challenged in such a way. But
well, the thing is that, like, that's a place to start, especially if it's going to be called a smokeless masonry heater.
Yeah. So I guess the reason I brought up that PR example is, like, I think the perception of a rocket mass heater is a rollback to a primitive aspect, whereas the brand new wood stove has a perception, regardless of the fact that it's an antiquated design. It came up much earlier than a typical rocket mass heater. The perception is that a wood stove is fancy, and it's the best way that somebody can heat their house with wood, whereas a rocket mass heater doesn't have that kind of
handsomeness.
It doesn't have that kind of reputation.
There are rocket mass heaters that are that handsome, but they got to sell it. Somebody's got to buy it. Like, I'm gonna go buy. I could buy a Hyundai for $20,000, or I could buy a Tesla Roadster for $100,000. And then, so
I think that you're going a bit further away from the point I'm trying to make.
But, so
even I know there's no comparison between a Tesla vehicle versus a Hyundai.
So all I'm trying to say is that I think that if the wood stove store offered a smokeless masonry heater for more money than any other stoves, interest would suddenly be a hell of a lot higher.
Oh, yeah, that's fair to say.
Yeah.
That's usually how that happens.
Suddenly that's what everybody wants.
That's why everybody...
And then there's tons of them sold.
Yeah.
Yeah. You heat with 1/10
it worked for Tesla, didn't it?
So, next up, composting toilets and human manure systems are being banned, and for good reason. At the same time, sewage and pollution are just poured into rivers. And
that's the heartbreaking thing. That's part of the reason. I mean, the thing I didn't mention before when you talked about your
Willow feeder?
Your willow feeder book and movie idea. I didn't want to gum that up by saying the willow feeder concept was the thing that convinced me to stay here. The idea that you've been, because I lived in, the city I came from, for almost 20 years, and that's exactly what I saw. Was, you talked about the paint example earlier. People taking whatever kind of chemicals they had, just dump it out on the street, or just litter it somewhere, dump it off a curve in the road, just like throw it off their vehicle, while their vehicle's still moving, polluting the waterway because they just needed to get it out of their yard or off of their front porch or whatever.
Right, or out of their car, or
exactly.
It needs to go away.
Yeah, and and that is the heartbreaking thing about, I guess, civilized city life versus what we can do here and the kind of stuff we have going on here.
The food provided by grocery stores and restaurants is getting really scary, and people exploring gardening are advocating paths that are even more toxic, while also costing more money and consuming huge amounts of time. Gardening can be easy. Okay, and I talked about a bunch of this stuff already.
And one thing I want to add here, this is the idea I said I wanted to share with you later on. I want to have a GAMCOD camp here.
What do you mean by GAMCOD camp?
I mean that, before the growing season begins, a bunch of people sign up to be boots. And then they show up here, and we're like, okay, we're going to bust out GAMCOD this year. And this is what we're going to do. Well, we can grab the soil the dirt from inside Allerton Abbey if we want, just like we did this past year. But the idea is that what I would love to see is, again, 3's the magic number. If we had just three new people who were here specifically to do a GAMCOD thing. So they're part of the boot camp, and they each had their own GAMCOD hugel. And I think that would be a fantastic way to show that we've got, we can do gardening on the cheap. We can do gardening and not take up too much time. And
all right, I'll be back. You keep going.
All right.
You keep going. You talk about what you want.
I'll let Paul go observe that berm. So yeah, this is Stephen taking the mic here. I think that. So I've had discussions with Paul about what it would take to get more boots here, and I think that having things that are project based may be a stronger way to go. And what the project I'm advocating right now is it's also folding in with GAMCOD. The idea that there are folks who sign up to be here for the growing season. We'll start in like early or like the middle part of April, and then by May 1st. Our hugels will be done, and then they're going to be here all throughout the summer and taking care of that GAMCOD plot. And then at the end of that summer, then they can stay on as a boot if they want, and they can hang out with us, or they can pull up stakes and roll out after they're finished. They'll be able to take credit as a GAMCOD person, putting their own GAMCOD hugel together. But again, it's going to give us content that convinces other people that there's plenty of evidence to suggest that gardening doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, whether it's money in your pocket or time throughout the day and throughout the summer. I think that this is one way to get more stuff going on for GAMCOD, get more people convinced that gardening doesn't have to be full of toxic chemicals in order to be pulled off or whatever. There you go.
Right. I think it would be great to have, you're right, let's have a dozen boots here.
No, not even a dozen. Just 3 people. A dozen's cool, but we don't need that many. No. Paul, something that you have always done is like, okay, if we had 50 more people, or if we had 30 people here for this. No, we don't need that many. All we need are, like, again, 3's the magic number, man.
Okay.
Just 3 people who are willing to commit to be here for the growing season. That's what I was mentioning as you were out of the room.
Okay.
It's like 3 people here from, early to mid-April until the end of September.
Are you thinking of doing 3 GAMCOD plots?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, something like that. Each of those people would be responsible for that. And, they would have the support of the boot camp thing. They would have the bunk to stay in. They'd have the food that you provide. They'd have all the tools here that were available. Plenty of water is available for them to take care of that. Any of the seeds that they want to put in, we could have here.
The opportunity to ring the bell so they can get a couple, get some money.
Yeah, and during that time, they're documenting their GAMCOD process.
Yeah.
So you would be generating a lot of the content required for the GAMCOD movie or the book or, whatever you wanted to have done. Plus, you'd have people here building a community with values that are in line with what you want to cultivate here. Those are the kinds of that's the coolest thing I would love to see, and that's why I wanted to share it with you, because it's a GAMCOD project which is stupid easy, especially when you deal with a hugel the size that we were able to pull off this past season. Something like that is awesome. And it doesn't take a zillion people to show up all at once. All it takes is, like I said, 3 people who are dedicated to being here for the growing season, the easiest time of the year, because the winter can be pretty cold. But the growing season is, go from April until the end of September. That's all we would ask. And during that time, their main focus is making sure their GAMCOD plot is operating at 100%. They put most of their effort into the GAMCOD thing, and then in the time when they're not working on the GAMCOD plot, which is going to be quite a bit, we could be doing other boot stuff. And they'll be practicing with tools or learning other skills or whatever else. Moving the boot camp forward. That's where my brain is when you were talking about, whether it was GAMCOD or whether having more boots here or getting things done or generating GAMCOD material for a Kickstarter or whatever. That's where my brain has been going.
Hi, this is Mark. There are a lot of reasons to get angry these days, but I prefer to focus on the positive things that we each can do to make this world a better place. The book, Building a Better World in Your Backyard, Instead of Being Angry at Bad Guys, is a great resource for just that. Instead of throwing my arms up in frustration at governments or big corporations, there's a list of ideas that we each can tackle to affect change. Information about this book and other resources can be found at Permies.com.
I had like 57 different simultaneous thoughts, but the one that perked to the top is the bit about you recently measured the temperature at the greenhouse, and the temperature down at the bottom of the thermal wells was substantial, 6 degrees warmer.
Yeah. It's like 50 degrees or something like that. Yeah.
So it looks like we're gaining 2 degrees per year inside that greenhouse. So annualized thermal inertia is working, and then the big thing out of that is Josiah Kobernick. He was the guy that ran point on the greenhouse project, and basically he had been here for about 9 months as a boot in the boot camp. And he had helped with building the berm shed, so a bunch of roundwood timber framing at the berm shed. And then he came up with the idea to do the greenhouse project. And so and so I said okay, and we did the Kickstarter and all the blah blah blah. But and then he built that whole thing and he got it done, and I think he did a beautiful job. Oh, yeah. And it's the first time, of course. And before arriving here, he had 0 roundwood timber framing experience, but I think he did a wonderful, wonderful job. I think he did excellent. And then, in fact, we even had an expert come by and give him an A+.
That's right. Yeah.
So the thing that I'm thinking of is that there was a guy that came to the boot camp in the summer, like in August. He arrived in August, I think, and he left. And he told me that he left because he felt like the boot camp was too basic. And I believe your words were.
you're talking about this summer?
This just a few months ago.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to name names,
sure.
But it's like I believe your analysis of him was not particularly high, and but the thing I ended up when this guy was leaving and he needed to tell me about the boot camp's too basic. The thing I told him is like, well, take a look at Josiah Kobernick. he built the greenhouse project. What did you think of that? Did that seem like it was basic? And it's like the boot camp is what you make of it. And I believe your analysis was what he got out of it is remarkably similar to what he put into it. Is that would that be? I mean,
that's a very astute assessment there, Paul. Thank you.
And I think that there were other people here at about the same time where what they got out of it was 100 times more than what he got out of it, in a matter of speaking. And what they put in was 100 times more. They were engaged and they were, interested. Like they knew what was going on. They wanted to talk about it. They had questions. They had good questions, and they did tons of amazing stuff while in the boot camp. But then, of course, there's people where it seems like being in the boot camp seems basic to them.
And it's just not a good fit, Paul.
And that's a good way of putting it. Like, somehow they arrived, and I would have to say that sometimes we've had silver spooners here, and they do great. In this case, it was a silver spooner, and he's kind of like, hold my hand, take me through this, do the work for me. I'm more of an executive.
There was a lot of that vibe of do the work for me. I do have to. This goes back to like another issue that we talked about before. It's the culture that is generated, I guess maybe here in the U.S. and it doesn't necessarily mean young people. It's the culture of people not willing to physically lean in and do stuff. They think that playing Minecraft makes them an expert builder or a miner, or like, wow, look at this garden I made in this video game.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the same thing. And when that perception in their brain butts up against reality, they tap out way too quick.
So what I want to say is the greenhouse is a success. It's gaining 2 degrees per year as designed. It's getting warmer and warmer with every year. And on that very first year, it got to 12 below outside, but it did not freeze inside. And so it's like, this is amazing. And I'm talking about 2 degrees warmer per year at the bottom of the thermal wells. Yep. And that's like the core of the system. To me, this is huge. And this is what Josiah has. Now, of course, what I want is people like Josiah and Jennifer to, be here for 20 years. But instead, they got married and they have a baby and they inherited a bunch of acres and they're off on those acres.
Life happened. Yep. And they had to move elsewhere. That happens.
So, and I'm glad that it happened. At the same time, I'm pissy about it. So
you have conflicted emotions.
Yeah, there you go.
That situation. There you go.
So you're talking about bringing some people in, and I kind of felt like I had a whole bunch of different. So then some people are kind of like, well, wait, what you're describing is way too simple, and I'm kind of thinking like, it can be.
That's all we're asking for. I'm not asking for somebody to come here and change the world and turn Wheaton Labs on its head.
I am.
I know you. I know you are, Paul. You're not working with the boots every day. and I want to help. I want to help the word get out there that the GAMCOD project is building evidence that gardening is something that does not have to be all-consuming, whether it's your time or your money. And I want to turn basic people into actual accomplished gardeners. I want to find people who are not afraid to put their hands in the dirt. I want to find people who are like, I want to have the satisfaction of feeding myself with the food that I have helped cultivate. I want to have people who want to wake up in the morning and look at the mountains. That's the kind of thing I want to see. And it doesn't have to take a very complex person to do that. It doesn't have to take a resident subject matter expert to do that. It's just somebody who has the values that we want to cultivate in the community that you want to build here. That's what I'm looking for. And you don't have to be an expert out of the gate, in my opinion. You don't have to, that's where I'm coming from. I just let right, we have 0 boots, okay? I want 3 people, and I want 3 people who want to garden. That's what I want to see this coming growing season.
I want to make experts.
That comes in time.
Yeah.
You know.
But like Josiah, I mean,
he turned into an incredible joiner. Yeah, with the woodwork he did. Absolutely. Yeah. With the GAMCOD project, you're starting from scratch, and you're going to find out just how easy it is, and how unintimidating, if that's even a word, that gardening can be. You don't have to worry about pH testing and sort of all that stuff. You get with the fundamentals, and you can thrive just by working with the fundamentals. That would be my point, and I think that's the point of the GAMCOD project, is to let people know the bar for entry is low. You just need to be dedicated, and you need to see it through. That's where I'm coming from. So I don't need an expert. I just need somebody who wants to be there and not phone it in. And for whatever reason, the world is filling up with people who just want to phone it in, and I'm sick and tired of seeing that happen. There are some times where I'm like, maybe I will be working here by myself for the next 20 years of my life. And I'm like, I can deal with that, but that's not really going to be moving anything forward. I would love to have the evidence of, again, GAMCOD is the thing that's on my mind, just because it worked so well this year. Like, I would love to have more of that evidence, generated while we're here.
I mean, it was a remarkably small garden. It was a tiny bit
compared to what we have available around here. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was very, very strictly constrained and within that 200 square feet, and yet it was magical. Of course, sunchokes always do great around here. This is the climate, like, tailor-made for that plant, or the other way around. The plant is tailor-made for this environment. It works great. Is my point.
Well, the sunchokes do good. I've heard of places where people get more, like the sunchokes are happier.
Oh yeah, okay.
But they tolerate this very well.
And it's my understanding that they put up with the harshest conditions in terms of vegetables growing somewhere. Yeah. So it's like better than turnips,
Yeah.
And they did even better than the potatoes, which have a higher caloric content. That's cool. But potatoes are a little more finicky, and they need a little more care. But my point is that, if you look at it strictly from the numbers, half of our calories came from the sunchokes, if not just edging out everything else. Over 50% of our calories were just that plant, which is really easy to grow because it grows on itself. It's a volunteer. It keeps coming back. It doesn't stop, And to see that happen, that was amazing to watch. And there were people who were here over this past summer who were not very strong gardeners at all, and they saw that, oh wow, this plant is growing because I was here to water it, to weed it, to get rid of the tansy that was growing all over it, to get rid of the thistle that was growing on it. They had their hands in the dirt, helping that plant do its thing. The plant couldn't help but grow, and they realized they were part of that process of getting that plant moving in the way that they wanted it to. That's what I want to help cultivate in the world, is more people who are willing to do that sort of thing and appreciate, and this is where the values come in. They'll appreciate the effort that they put into it because of how well the garden grows, because of because of what comes out of it, the yield. And if it were me and 3 other people, that's all I'm looking for.
I hope those 3 other people are going to be here for years instead of
maybe that's all it's going to take to get them here.
Some people come as a sepper for just 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, and then they're like, but I got to get back to whatever, so I can only be here for a little while, and that turns out to be terrific. But what I really like is the idea of people that are going to come here and be part of what we're doing for not just 2 years, but for 10 years,
I want people who can commit to a project and to be here from the beginning to the end. And GAMCOD is a perfect package for that.
Yeah.
It's during the easier time of the year to be here, and you see the results at the end of that process, and that's when you can be at that decision point. Okay, can I stick around here? Can I make it? I mean, they'll see me living in a tent year-round. So it's like, oh, okay, that idiot can do it. Why couldn't I? That's all I want to see. Somebody who's willing to make that commitment of the 6 months, from May until the end of September. And then they can choose whether or not they want to stay here. Sure. Don't show up in December and say, oh yeah, I'm going to make it here for 2 years or whatever, and then they get frozen out after 2 or 3 weeks. That's because they're not ready for it.
I really think that no one should ever get froze out. I mean, it's like...
They won't, but they need to get ramped up to that point,
That's true. That's true.
And my point in saying that if they show up at the beginning of the growing season, weather's really mild, the environment is working, everything is springing up, the weather's changing for the milder, the plants are going to be growing. It's a great way to see the bounty of the gardening process here.
It's easy to be outside on our coldest days for an entire 8 hours, but of course we all come inside at lunch, so it's only 4 hours at a time. And then on top of that, on the coldest days, we generally find projects indoors on the coldest days. But even on a cold day, it's like it's easy to stay warm. It's easy to stay warm, and the only thing keeping you from being warm outside is knowledge. And you should be perfectly comfortable all day, every day. So, all right, setting all of this aside for a moment, I'm going to come back to it.
Don't forget it. All I need are 3 people.
And so I'm going to come back to that in just a moment.
Okay, all right.
So, all right, for all the Kickstarters and all of the server stuff and all that, I've got a note here that says, it is clear that I need to do a majority or substantial or critical component of the work on these fronts. There are people that will help, but it still needs to be mostly me, or I'm the biggest hang-up. I'm the thing gumming up the works, and I'm trying to ungum the works as much as I can. And if I'm turned into a dunderhead, then it all becomes so very slow. And that's been the thing for the last 5 months or so I've been fighting with, is dunderheadedness from stupid health things.
Health fallout.
Yeah. There is so much about people being naughty, bots being naughty, trying to get the new server up, and mix into it is the opposite. People being incredibly generous or incredibly kind. People solving tough problems with Permies and here at Wheaton Labs to move our community or our communities forward. People being supportive with coin. Thank you, Mr. Benefactor. And, of course, I shouldn't limit it to just the benefactor because there's been a lot of different...
Boots Love has been really awesome this past year, gotta say. Lots of chocolate bars, lots of coffee, safety gloves, books, all sorts of really great stuff has come in.
Hey, didn't you get $10,000 recently?
Oh, yeah, there was that too. Yeah, 700 posts, 10 grand. No strings attached.
Yeah.
I sent a thank you to the person, and I hope they received it.
And I should say Bill Krim has been generous again, and he's generous at least once a year, every year. But the Crimson Krim Cycle, we should get that online again. It's got something wrong with the battery.
Yeah, battery replacement. So Jennifer was a ringer here, and her assessment was that the batteries just went out. So replacing the batteries needs to happen.
Okay, another reason to do another Kickstarter. Okay. So we've people being supportive with coin. Unfortunately, the emergencies and naughty tends to get my attention, and I don't take the time for a proper thank you. And so I should. I'm shitting on myself. I should spend more time being grateful to these people that have been so very, very kind to us and supportive and helpful to all these projects. And instead, the naughty people tend to get more of my attention because of reasons, and that I hate that I do that, but I think almost everybody does that, so I don't feel too bad, but I don't like being that kind of person, I guess. I want to be a person who puts more time into the good people than the bad. And of course, my day-to-day is about 1,000 times more complicated than this. And for all of it, I think that the thing that is the core of solving it is...
more boots in the boot camp.
More boots in the boot camp. Everything. If we can have more boots in the boot camp, everything else is solved after that. And it's like, 100 million people. I can reach 100 million people if I can get a dozen people in the boot camp. And I know you think a dozen's too many, but...
No, I'm not saying it's too many. I'm saying that all I need.
Okay. All right.
Now, of course, you have a bigger picture in mind, so yeah, that's going to take a dozen people. I am focusing on a single project. Probably the one that is the most important to me.
Okay.
Is the gardening stuff, but that's just me speaking.
I think at the core of it all, the core of the boot camp, people doing the boring yet soul-building stuff that builds the future of permaculture, and of course taking pictures along the way. And it's so we have all these ideas for more Kickstarters, but there's bits that still need to be done in order for those bits to be done. Mm-hmm. And so before the Kickstarter can happen, before a Wofati Kickstarter can even be contemplated, we need to finish our Wofati projects and prove annualized thermal inertia. And to prove it, we need scientific rigor. We need 365 days in a row of scientific rigor. And so...
your window quilts are done, by the way.
Okay.
So if you stay in Allerton Abbey and you do all this stuff, you'll have a chance to stay warm inside a nicely quilted, windowed place.
So
Sorry.
My last note for this whole podcast is... I ditched a successful software engineering career, to try to make a difference. I cannot imagine any path other than the one I'm on now. I wish there were 20 people here that were hell-bent on being here for 20 plus years trying to make a similar difference. I mean, I don't have to do the exact same thing I'm doing, but I kind of feel like, in fact, everything we've done here is a design to facilitate 20 people being here. Mm-hmm. And so it's the design of the whole thing. And I'm thinking that it's going to be 20 people that are just, I don't know, stupid in the same flavor of stupid.
I think the rest of the world would say, oh, they share your values.
That's a kindness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, surely there are other people that are as passionate about all this stuff as I am. But I don't know, it can't just be that the only people that are as passionate about this stuff as I am are the people that are keen on smoking cigarettes or smoking weed, which I think is blocking a lot of people from coming here. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just can't help but think that there's got to be 20,000 people that are as keen about this stuff as I am, that they want to be here and be part of this and doing this, but I can't seem to find them. That's my feels. But in order to be able to... granted, I don't know, people listening to this, they probably are commuting to work, and while they like to hear this stuff and understand it and whatnot, I can understand that they don't want to move here and be part of this. And yet, I don't know, that's what I kind of designed all of everything for. I mean, I could have designed something that was just me by myself, But instead, I designed something to facilitate a lot of people. That's my design.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had probably nearly 1,000 people come through over 11 years. Wow, in 6 more months it'll be 12 years that we've been here. Huh. But I don't know. I thought, I mean, Fred's here, you're here, Des comes and goes, Boots come and go. I just kind of thought that there would be well, there you go.
A persistent core.
I have so much I want to get done. And I kind of feel like if you're a person that's listening to this and you're not going to move out here, could you put some money in the Bell Fund? Because I think that might help bring a lot of people out here. Or at least, like, they'll think that if they make the leap to change their life to come out here, they at least have some cash flow. And so I think for a lot of people, because there are people that have arrived here and they had some coin in the bank and they're fine. And but I think that there are some people that are great people where they've come here and they didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. And it's kind of like, all right, so I like the idea. Please support the Bell Fund, Permies.com/BEL. And let's see if that'll help bring some people out. I also think that if people were to go and put coin into my Patreon, which I'm actually, maybe I shouldn't say this because Patreon's changing again. But if there was a bunch of support for the video Patreon, I mean, what I've done in the past is I've taken I've actually paid people who came here and took video more than what I get out of Patreon, like 2 or 3 times more, in the hopes that eventually more people would support my video Patreon thing. But there's just so much going on all at once. I'm spread too thin, and I designed everything to be a group effort. And so when it's not a group effort, then I find myself doing a lot of the chores that need to be done to keep things just existing. So there you go. That's all my notes. That's all the stuff to talk about. Yes, more boots in the boot camp, I think, is the solution to everything. Because if we can do that, then suddenly everything else in the empire moves forward in a much stronger fashion, and suddenly everything's getting done. And it depends on all this. I think that our food systems are coming online in spades. We have 41 rockety contraptions that we've built here over the years. I think we have more than 24 that are currently actively running. I think that's an experience in itself. I don't know. I think there's just so many. And then, of course, there's kitty cats. But they're everywhere. All right. I think I'm at the end. Stephen, you got anything else?
Hey, thanks for listening. And thanks to everybody who has contributed to Permies this year to make it a fantastic website, but also the stuff here at Wheaton Labs, moving that forward. I really do appreciate that. And there are seppers who've come out here. There are ringers who've come out here. The facilitators for the PTJ and the SKIP program, all the boot love that has come in. It's really made my life just so much cozier. So thank you to everybody who looks out for us and contributes here, even if you think it's some small way. I mean, when everybody smiles when they receive mail. So when there's boots love that comes in, or something that a letter that comes in the mail, that's such an awesome feeling. So thanks to everybody for sending stuff our way and keeping us going, even if you can't be here in person.
Yeah. If you like this sort of thing, come on out to the forums at Permies.com, where we talk about community, homesteading, and permaculture.
All the time.
In a world on the brink of social collapse, one website stands above the rest to fight back the zombie horde of corporate trolls. Permies.com. Take back control of your destiny and protect your loved ones from the toxic gick coming at you from all directions. Strap on your overalls and start building that bunker of abundance with the good vibes and friendly, helpful insight found at Permies.com.